Can Canada afford to spend tens of billions on fighter jets and still call itself fully independent? Donald Trump's tariffs, harsh rhetoric, and threats over trade have made that question impossible to ignore. Throughout the last decade, Canada's F-35 program quietly turned into one of the country's most heated political debates, exposing conflicts over money, control, and sovereignty. But now, after years of delays, soaring costs and leaked reports, the debate has exploded into the open. Gripen E jets from Sweden are back on the table, promising lower cost, domestic assembly, and full control over the aircraft's systems, a sharp contrast to the F-35 program's tight US oversight. So what does this mean for Canada's defence, its aerospace industry, and its relationship with the United States? And how will the Royal Canadian Air Force maintain Arctic patrols while navigating these high-stakes choices? Keep watching as we uncover the full story behind Canada's $33 billion fighter jet debate and why it could redefine the nation's sovereignty for decades to come. The story begins in 2010 when the Canadian government announced plans to buy 65 F-35 fighter jets through a direct deal without opening the process to competition. The decision was met with instant criticism. Defence experts questioned whether the aircraft matched Canada's real needs. Economists raised concerns about rising costs. Ordinary citizens demanded openness, which they felt was missing from the process. What had been presented as a simple upgrade soon turned into a political liability. By 2014, the pressure could no longer be ignored. Parliamentary committees reopened the review. Every cost figure was questioned, and the original plan was pushed aside. The F-35 was not fully removed from the discussion, but the idea that Canada would automatically follow through with the purchase began to weaken. Almost 10 years later, after years of revisions and delays, the government officially chose the F-35A Lightning II in 2023. The announcement sounded final. Canada committed to buying 88 aircraft. Deliveries were set to start in early 2026, with full readiness expected by 2032. For many, it looked like the issue was finally settled. That belief did not last long. In June 2025, the Auditor General released a report that shook both political leaders and military officials. The original cost estimate of 19 billion Canadian dollars had risen sharply. New projections placed the total at 27.7 billion, with the possibility of climbing to 33 billion once base upgrades, weapons integration, long-term maintenance, and operating costs were included. That meant an increase of about 75%. This was not something that could be explained as simple inflation or a small budgeting error. Canada's defence budget was already stretched thin across its large territory and international duties. The new figures forced leaders to take a hard look at the situation. At the same time, relations with the United States were becoming more strained. Donald Trump, in his second term as president, announced plans for 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. He also made comments suggesting Canada could someday become the 51st state. Some dismissed the remarks as political theatre, but officials in Ottawa took the message seriously. It highlighted a difficult reality in the power balance between the two countries. Economic pressure and political influence were no longer subtle. They were being discussed openly. With all this happening, Canada made a move few expected. In August 2025, the government signed a new defence and aerospace cooperation deal with Sweden focused on Arctic security. The partnership focused on a region where extreme conditions demand equipment built for cold weather and long-term operation. Sweden's defence company Saab acted quickly. Its offer went far beyond selling aircraft. Under the proposal, the Gripen E would be built in Canada. Technology sharing would be extensive. Control over maintenance, upgrades, and future changes would stay inside the country. The plan also projected 12,600 new aerospace jobs, including 9,000 tied directly to the Gripen program and another 3,600 linked to the Global Eye surveillance system. At that point, the discussion changed. It was no longer only about aircraft performance or delivery schedules. It became a wider debate about Canada's future direction. Bombardier was positioned as a key partner, which raised hopes of rebuilding Canada's aerospace industry. Supporters described it as a chance to regain control, cut long-term reliance on foreign suppliers, and keep core defence capabilities inside the country instead of outsourcing them. Then came March 2025. Defence Minister Bill Blair addressed the public with an announcement that caught global attention. Canada would officially review the F-35 contract again. The Gripen E, which had been removed from the 2021 competition, was back on the table. In Washington, the response was immediate. Pentagon officials and Lockheed Martin executives had to accept a new reality. A deal once thought to be locked in was now in doubt. To understand why, three forces need to be considered together: money, politics, and technology. The financial issue was the most visible. The Auditor General's report showed that early cost estimates had left out major expenses: base construction upgrades, specialised training, weapons compatibility, and decades of upkeep were not minor details. They were long-term commitments that would tie the hands of future governments. When all of this was added, the programme became a heavy financial burden with little room to adjust. Politics added yet another complication. Trump's tariff threats and public statements showed how quickly alliances can change. Relying too heavily on a powerful partner comes with danger, especially when that partner controls access to critical systems and technology. In that situation, national independence becomes limited rather than fully self-directed. Technology also played a major role in the debate. The Gripen E was not attractive only because of its lower purchase price. Its cost per flight hour is close to $8,000, while the F-35 is estimated to cost between $35,000 and $47,000 per hour. The aircraft was built to operate from short runways and scattered locations, including highways. That feature suits Canada's Arctic regions where bases are limited and conditions are harsh. Even more important was Saab's offer to give Canada full authority over the jet's systems. This was very different from the structure of the F-35 program. The F-35 is not just a traditional aircraft. It functions as a digital system driven by software with millions of lines of code. Mission data, sensors, and combat performance depend on updates that are controlled by the United States. Aside from Israel, no country has full access to the source code. Without those updates, the aircraft does not fail mechanically, but it slowly loses effectiveness because the technology falls behind. Public discussion grew louder around claims of a possible kill switch, meaning a remote method to disable the aircraft. Lockheed Martin and the Pentagon denied that such a feature exists. Even so, many remained uneasy. Whoever controls the software updates effectively controls whether the aircraft remains usable. If updates stop, performance declines and fleets could eventually be grounded without a single missile being fired. This represented a clear break from earlier generations of fighter jets. In the past, buying an aircraft meant real control. Countries could maintain it, adjust it, and upgrade it within agreed limits. The F-35 introduced a different model, where access is limited by centralised authority and legal agreements. Opposition to revisiting the F-35 decision did not disappear. In late 2025, a leaked technical review from the 2021 competition brought the debate back into the spotlight. The scores appeared clear. The F-35 earned 57.1 out of 60 points, about 95%. The Gripen E received 19.8 points, around 33%. The gap was especially clear in mission performance. On upgrade potential, the F-35 received full marks, while the Gripen scored much lower. Senior military officials used these results to support their position. Former Royal Canadian Air Force Vice Chief Yvon Blondin argued that national defence requires superiority, not good enough. Major General Chris McKenna warned that operating two different fighter types would complicate logistics, training, and combat coordination. Their concerns were grounded in real-world military planning. In serious conflict, capability gaps can decide outcomes. Critics, however, kept asking a basic question that rarely received a clear answer. Better compared to what mission and against which enemy? Canada is not in a direct arms race with China or Russia. The Air Force's main duties involve defending Canadian airspace, monitoring the Arctic, and supporting allies when needed. Within that reality, the need for a stealth fighter program costing around $33 billion remained disputed. Surprisingly, concern also came from the business sector. The CEO of Bombardier warned that leaving the F-35 program could put existing contracts with American partners at risk. This was not framed as political pressure, but as economic reality. Canadian aerospace companies are closely tied to the US market, and any disruption could have serious effects. That point revealed another contradiction. The Gripen is Swedish in design, but its engine, the F414, is built in the United States. Export approval for that engine is controlled by Washington. Some level of dependence cannot be avoided. Analysts pointed out that the US could still apply pressure through engine approvals, intelligence cooperation, trade policies, or even through Canada's role in NORAD. Independence does not exist in isolation. As arguments intensified, a middle ground option began to appear. Saab suggested a blended plan. Canada would receive the first 16 F-35s as planned, honouring existing commitments. The remaining 72 aircraft would be replaced by Gripen models assembled inside Canada. The idea was to balance alliance responsibilities with domestic industry growth. The risks were obvious. Operating two different aircraft types would raise costs, stretch logistics, and complicate training. In a crisis, inconsistency could weaken performance. Still, talks continued on both fronts. Discussions with Lockheed Martin focused on better industrial benefits, while negotiations with Saab and European partners moved forward as well. By early 2026, government officials chose their words carefully. A full exit from the F-35 program seemed unlikely, but other options were no longer ruled out. The message was clear. Canada would not be ordered around, but it also would not make reckless choices. At its heart, this issue goes beyond aircraft specifications. It reflects a country trying to define the limits of independence in a world where security and reliance are tightly connected. Choosing the F-35 means access to advanced capability, smooth NATO integration, and the support of the strongest military on Earth. The trade-off is accepting limits that quietly reshape what ownership really means. Choosing the Gripen signals a push toward domestic control and industrial growth, but it also brings diplomatic risks and open questions about long-term combat performance. Prime Minister Mark Carney has already approved the purchase of the first 16 F-35s. That leaves the remaining 72 jets as the most important defence choice Canada has faced in decades, one that will shape both the future of the Royal Canadian Air Force and the meaning of sovereignty in the modern world. Any rigorous choice about fighters must treat the acquisition number as the start of a long fiscal chain, not the end. Canada's commitment to 88 F-35s at an estimated procurement price of 19 billion Canadian dollars is only the entry point to decades of sustainment, training, infrastructure, and weapons costs. The country's own announcement framed the cash outlay as a major one-time investment, but other assessments show the lifetime burden can be several times higher when sustainment and operating costs are included. Two basic metrics help compare options in a concrete way: steady-state annual sustainment cost per aircraft and cost per flight hour. Recent program analyses show the F-35's per aircraft annual sustainment estimates have fallen and risen as assumptions changed. The GAO reports that projected steady-state annual costs remain sensitive to assumed flight hours and maintenance trends. That sensitivity matters because cheaper per-hour aircraft allow more training and presence for the same budget, while a high per-hour platform forces either less flying or more spending. Independent bodies place the F-35's operational cost in a wide band, and the Congressional Budget Office has documented how availability and use affect total program cost. Practical consequence: a fleet that is costly to fly will tend to be flown less, which reduces pilot experience and sortie rates. A measurable operational cost that is easy to miss in headline purchase prices. By contrast, multi-role single-engine fighters such as the Gripen typically report a much lower cost per flight hour in public studies and manufacturer material. Multiple comparative studies and reporting place Gripen hourly operating estimates far below typical F-35 figures, often in the single-digit thousands of US dollars per flight hour on some measures, versus tens of thousands for the F-35 in other studies. The practical result is simple. For the same annual operations budget, a Gripen fleet can generate more flight hours and flights for pilot currency and Arctic patrols. A second major factor is industrial return. Saab's package for a domestic assembly line and a claimed 12,600 Canadian jobs is not a trivial number. Job creation shifts part of the program's economic calculus. Money that would leave the country for foreign work now becomes wages, taxes, and supplier investments at home. Those benefits have a fiscal multiplier. In many procurement studies, each direct aerospace job supports additional jobs in the supply chain and region. But industrial offsets are not free. They often require guarantees, technology transfers, and long-term maintenance commitments that create ongoing government obligations. When industrial benefit claims are evaluated, auditors typically look for firm contracts, timelines, and clear milestones, not simply headline job figures. Third, interoperability must be measured in operational terms. The F-35's architecture links sensors, mission data, and updates in a managed network. That arrangement gives a high level of integrated capability with close allies, but it also concentrates software control and sustainment pathways. If a buyer values seamless NATO data sharing and wants plug-and-play integration with allied mission systems, the F-35 scores highly. If a buyer values local control over software, modifications, and sustainment independence, the Gripen model, which emphasizes simpler logistics and local maintenance options, can be preferable. Both positions are defensible. Both carry costs that can be converted into dollar terms and compared. Finally, put the numbers into a defensible decision framework. A defensible procurement decision should include 1. A multi-decade budget projection with sensitivity bands for flight hours and fuel prices. 2. A sortie rate model, showing how many training and patrol hours each option buys for expected annual budgets. 3. A risk matrix that assigns probabilities to supply chain disruption, software update restrictions, and foreign political pressure. And 4. A net present value, NPV, calculation that folds in industrial offsets and tax receipts. When those elements are run with conservative assumptions, trade-offs become visible. A lower acquisition price can be offset by higher sustainment. Deep industrial offsets can blunt economic dependence, but raise near-term costs. In short, the real choice is not between an aircraft that is simply better or cheaper. It is between mixes of capability, predictability, and control. If Canada's planners wish to minimise long-term budget risk while maximising flight hours for Arctic surveillance and sovereignty patrols, a model that favours lower operating cost and local sustainment will look attractive on paper. If they prioritise full integration with allied mission systems and the highest technical performance envelope, the F-35's lifecycle costs may be worth the price for the interoperability dividend. Both paths require transparent, published assumptions and independent verification so that lawmakers and citizens can see which trade-offs are being accepted and why. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button so more people can see it. Share your thoughts in the comments because this debate affects more than just aircraft. And if you want more clear, honest analysis like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video.